It's Memorial Day. We got a little bit of sun. It's supposed to rain all day. But I decided to run out and scout a few small properties. Not get too far out in case it pours on me. But just check some few small spots I haven't been in too much this year that I wanted to get to. And I'm just walking into this one by the main entrance. So I'm going to scout some of this and just see if I can locate some bedding areas and some setups. And it's kind of hard when it gets this green, but if you got a good eye and you know what you're looking for, you can still read this good enough to get onto some decent animals for this fall. Because again, you know, I get this all the time. You're not looking for deer sign of what they're doing now. You're looking for sign of what they did last fall. So a lot of people are constantly telling me, well, why are you scouting now? The sign now won't be what they're doing this fall. No, it won't. I'm looking at old sign. So, and this is old sign from last year. Might not be the kind of sign I'm looking for, but it's a clue. It's a clue to the age class of the animals in here, which I was suspect over. I need a few more clues to go with it, but it's a start. I see the hunter access going in here, going down into this valley, which is what I would expect. It would just draw all the people from the parking lot that way. But what I want to look at here is this little ridge line along the highway. That looks like it would be a good bedding ridge. And it would be something where nobody goes in from the parking lot and follows the highway. And it's got the ingredients for bedding, and it's got the ingredients to keep people out. So I just want to take a walk down here, and it looks like there's a pretty good deer trail going this way. And see what we can find back in here. There's a pretty good trail right here. As you can see, it doesn't take much of a ridgeline to catch my attention. I mean, this is a difference of about 5 feet, but it's a distinct ridge. You know, man-made from years ago. Probably rock piles from and debris from the edge of a field that isn't here anymore. But this looks like a little oasis. I don't see any rub sign, but you can see distinct trails and such. The kind of stuff where your average guy would not be able to get into a tree, too. Well, that was kind of a bust. It just ended at a yard of private property. Not much bedding sign in there or anything else. Which kind of leads me back to where all the hunters went. Out in this little valley. Starting to get a little swampy out here. Whoever was hunting back here is going right through this water, and it's almost over my boots. Good thing I got the Arxus. Get a little higher than the mucks by about 4 inches, and I think I'm going to make it. I think this is about the deepest spot. Oop, there's a deep spot. Look at that. 1 inch. Made it. browse going on back here. A lot of browsing. Anybody hungry? There's some pheasant back mushrooms. You fry that stuff up, it tastes like steak. Getting across that water probably loses some of the hunters. Lots of buckthorn down here, holy cow. I was in here years ago and I don't remember this much buckthorn. It really grew in over here. The trail coming in and out of the swamp is pretty well used. There's a lot of traffic on it. Going right through here. This actually right here creates a great funnel. To get into the woods over there, there's a shallow spot in the water there. And then the other side has like a thin tree line that goes up into the big tree line before it goes into crops. And that way is all open swamp and open terrain. A little further is some backyards. So it kind of pushes the deer through here. I think there's some bedding probably going on by those backyards in the swamp. But everything would have to go through right about here. This wouldn't be a bad spot to give it a setup. If I'm right about the bedding. I mean, there's a couple of decent trees in here too. Doesn't look like any of them were set up. There's the box elder and buckthorn down here and some willow. But a guy could get a stand in a tree about like that and really cover this whole funnel. It'd be nicer to get right along the water though. I don't see much. Yeah, if I came in like this to this tree, anything that got to my scent, I'd be able to shoot. So I'm just gonna look around a little bit here, see if I can find some bedding or something, because I think that they're probably bedding this way and coming this way. You know, there's crops that way and there's crops that way. So if they come to this intersection here, which actually might make that tree over there better, cover anything going that way. Yeah, here's where all the trails collide, right here. I don't know if we can get up that tree. That's where the mushrooms are. Oh, look at this. Wonder if this is our hunter here. Maybe he's got the same spot. Doesn't look too old, but it looks like it's been hunted before because there's a Dr. Pepper. It's illegal to leave chairs out here, but people do it. But, yeah, I have a serious doubt that's a bow hunter. The trails go right by, you wouldn't have a good shot. It's probably from somebody gun hunting. Pretty sure of that. And that is really flooded back there. The water is about 2 feet deep. I'm not going to go in there, but I can be relatively sure that these lone trees out there and bushes and those cattails and the willow brush over there, that's all going to hold bedding. I know that from history. There's some of them are going to come out here, some of them are going to come along this tree-lined island over here and cross here. Maybe some of them go that way. But a guy sitting right here could shoot him on that island end over here. If you could find the right setup. I don't think this is the tree. It's too angled and nasty. But that tree might be the dead one. If I can get an arrow through the crap. This could be a good area. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the key is to be in one of those trees over there. Because this trail goes through here. Every trail goes through right here. Yeah, I think that might be the key right there. Not even cross the water. I'm gonna take a walk down that once and see where that goes. Okay, I'm gonna mark this tree right here because that covers all those trails. I mean, actually, I found more and more trails coming through here, and that can actually hit the trails over there too. And I think a lot of bedding's coming out of this marsh here, especially on the back side. And that's actually a closed area. You can't hunt over there, check on my map. So right here is a really good location. So I'd be willing to give this a shot. See if there's anything big in there. If I find some really big sign, but I marked this spot. Now all these trails coming from back there where I got the tree, going this way, about 200 or 300 yards up, is private crop fields. And while I was turkey hunting and trying to call turkeys out of those private crop fields, I found a lot of buck sign, big buck sign, coming out on these trails. So I'm assuming these are the same deer going through there. I mean, the trails go this way, and it's only 200 or 300 yards up. And these trails are all going over there heavy. I'm assuming anybody that finds those trails, that's on the main axis. It's going to hunt right up in there, and these deer are going to come through here late. This is the spot to be. That tree I picked, I think, is the place to be. I think where most people would find that sign up there and come back until they hit thick and set up. Actually knowing where it comes from is a good thing. Even me, I mean, if I went up there, I followed those back and I got back into here, this gets pretty thick. I would think I'm setting up on the edge of them, but look at this. I think they're bedding back there. That's better bedding terrain. That's the lowest elevation. And this just eases its way up there. And this is just all full of staging browse. I mean, look at these branches are all nipped off. All the leaves are gone. On all that buckthorn, on all the stinging nettle's been eaten down. There's even deer in here right now. So I'm willing to bet that that guy's setup is right over there. I'm willing to bet it's a gun setup. Getting here with a bow, I don't think would be a bad idea. However, if the guy shot a monster buck, it might enthuse him to come back with a bow. I'm gonna keep looking, see what else we can find back here, if there's any more little hidden gems, and keep you posted. Lots of stinging nettle, lots of jewelweed coming in. This should be an oasis come early season if they're bedding in here year round, which it appears they are. And man, these trails are just beat. Here's another one, just pounded with tracks. There's one right there just pounded with tracks, and another one over there pounded with tracks, all coming from right underneath that tree I picked. And there's a tree with a rub on it, right there. Not super high and historical, but a rub. One of the good things about these small properties is that a lot of times they're surrounded by areas where you can't hunt, or where private land people aren't doing much hunting or aren't killing all the deer that the public lands usually kill. And there you got floaters coming in and out of here at different periods of time during the year, and you have more of a chance of getting into something big on some of those properties. When I'm scouting, a lot of times I find spots that I think this is the spot, you know, as you're going through the woods. And as you move a little further, you realize that maybe that's not the spot, and maybe this is the spot. And sometimes I end up changing my mind several times, because it's very important that you pick the right setup. It's probably the most important thing, so that you have the highest kill rate. And what I mean by kill rate is when you get that buck within 40 yards, you kill him. What's your percentage? When you go out hunting and you get a target buck within 40 yards, how many of them do you kill? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Is it 80%? That's important. And part of the way you have a very high kill rate is to make sure your setups are right. That means you're always questioning them, always trying to find that perfect tree. So I included the scouting that I picked out the trees and then decided to go to a different tree, because I wanted you to see that thought process. It's starting to appear to me that this might be a better position. That position over there that I picked is probably about 40 yards from me right now. But now coming back here, I got a little bit more like a convergence of trails coming out from little different angles I didn't know about. And that spot is kind of kind of risky. Getting into the cattails and grass and climbing a tree and not getting seen is a little risky. And geez, I think they'd get this extra 40 yards. It's kind of do they or don't they. But this spot here is just where the woods opens up for a little bit. You know, it's still a little lowland, wettish. Lots of browse here. It's like staging here. There are some old rubs, but they don't rub buckthorn very much. You know, and but some of it is rubbed historically. It's one of those places where we might have to make sure there's a big buck here before we hunt, because I don't see a lot of big buck at the time, but I did on the other side. It's kind of, I'll look around a little more before I make that decision. But right in here wouldn't be bad, and we could control the wind a little bit better. Get a little bit of a southwest would miss the marsh, where over there it would go through the marsh. Southwest here would kind of miss it because the marsh ends right here. So this dead tree there might be pretty good, and I could probably get a shot to all these crisscrossing trails through here. I don't think this is bad. And then I can come in from over there, where if I come in over here, I'm also pushing deer. So I could come into this point from over there, even though it's hell getting through that crap. It would be better than pushing out an area. Yeah, I think this is the spot. It'd be easier to shoot them in here too than in that deep grass. This is going to get kind of high too, but as you can see, a lot of it is buckthorn. And it looks like the deer have been keeping it browsed down quite a bit. And these grasses aren't going to get that high. I can shoot into this stuff. And there's some heavy trails in here. And a lot of native species that the deer are going to eat in a confined area. There's a lot of stinging nettles, a lot of jewelweed, a lot of young buckthorn. And this is pretty much the first food source. I think they're going to get here and stage. I really do. Let's plan on marking that tree right there. Cover this area. But there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trails that go through here. There's even one crosswise one, I don't know what it's doing. But a lot of trails coming through here, a lot of marking. Old marking, but marking. And these aren't the types of trees deer like to rub, so a big buck could be going through here and not marking anything. But right here, man, this is just tore up. I wouldn't doubt it if there's some scrapes in here. I mean, look at these trails all meet right here. This is where a bed scrape would be, is like right underneath these vines. Kind of hard to tell if there was one now. I don't see anything. Maybe right here. Hard to say. But these trails are pretty beat, all coming out of this spot. Right here is the spot. It would be hard to hit this exact spot. But from that tree on the other side of this buckthorn, I could probably penetrate. This trail is the one I don't want to miss. This one that's scaring me a little bit. If there was a tree right here. That's the trouble with this buckthorn and crap. Finding the right tree. How much you put into your setup is extremely important. If you're just a little off, you screw it that first time. Well, the first time is when I'm killing those monsters. So I want to make sure I get this right. Is there any way to get set up over here and shoot through this area right here? That tree right there could be. Looks a little angled, but it doesn't look bad. If I clipped a couple buckthorn trees, which nobody cares about, they're invasive. It's a small little tree without much cover, but that would put me a shot right through to all that stuff, and one right through to here. The one I wanted to go in was right there. That's a better tree. But man, that back trail I want to hit. You know what though? I think I can hit that back trail. I think this is a better tree. I still like this tree better. I can come to this tree from back in here and not even access those trails. It'll be harder. But then if subordinate deer go through, they don't spook and blow and stuff. They just pass through and don't smell my scent. So I'll come in from over there. I'll mark a trail out of here. And this is my spot right here. We're gonna stand right up there. I can shoot them right in there. I can shoot them right over there. This whole area. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. This is a better tree than that thing over there. And it's a matter of what? I think that's about 12 feet to that tree. But you see that tree, I don't have to be on this side of it. You're gonna be skylit from over here. This tree I can kind of blend into this crap. I like this. Okay. Okay, my mind's finally made up. I'll mark this tree right here. There's a good historical rub there. And a fresh rub here. And this fresh one from last year is just above my knee and waist. And so is that one. Even though that's a year old, a buck that high is at least 2, I would say between 2 and 3 years old. But that's a good sign that there are some decent bucks in here. And I know turkey scout, and I found good sign over there. So starting to feel good about this. I mean, I still haven't found anything off of a mature buck, something that you'd think just screams 4, 5, 6 years old. But it has the sign and the terrain to hold deer like that, because this is some pretty thick stuff and nasty stuff, and I think people would have a hard time killing all the deer out of here. As I continue up the trail from the bedding and from my setup, these are the same trails, coming up here, going towards food and stuff. I'm probably gone 200 yards, and I'm starting to see some buck sign in here. There's a historical rub, a couple years old, that's, you know, the same height as the last ones we just looked at. And there's one on that big diameter tree there, the same height. But I see a decent one up ahead that looks fresh, that looks pretty high. Yeah, that's a pretty high rub right there. So now you're getting waist high to the center. And you got tines hitting way up here, which is pretty high. That could be potentially a pretty decent buck there. That's probably at least a 3-year-old, and that's fresh. So if 3-year-olds they're making it to 3 here, they're probably making it to maturity too. Maybe not every year. Yeah, there's a historical right there too. And another one over there. So if they're making it to 3, they're probably occasionally making it to 5, 6, 7. It's just a matter of when there's one that age on this property. Now that buck there, oh, look at the tines here, way over here from him there. That buck there, if he made it, is probably a 4-year-old this year. Which around here, a 4-year-old's a pretty good buck. In this kind of tangle here, people are going to have a hard time killing everything out here. And there's lots of private little swamps all the way around this. On private land, where a little too much pressure and they're just going to move. Looks like we're walking into a jungle as we get lower. This was a mature forest not too many years ago, with an understory you could see forever. And now you can see the pines, it's a pine forest, but look at all the buckthorn that's grown in the understory. I mean, some of this is so thick you can't even walk through it. There's a old historical rub that was pretty big, but that's really old. That's a big diameter tree, it's big around as my waist. Still lots of deer traffic in here, even with how thick it is. What I want to do is drop down through this low area and see what's on the other side. I've never been on that other side down there. It looks like a jungle though. Here's a real high historical. Not far from the last one we just seen. But I mean, even if that tree grew a little bit, that's still at least a 3-year-old. And you can still see scarring way up above it from tines. Old though. We need to find some fresh ones like that. I mean, right now I'm not anywhere where I would hunt. But that sign is still important to me to just confirm to me whether or not a giant buck is living here now. I would imagine a spot like this probably holds some doe bedding and probably gets some rut travel. So you would think that if something big is coming through here, there would be some rubs in here, but I wouldn't doubt it if they're on the outskirts. Because a big buck ain't gonna run through here. Rutting. He's gonna probably follow the downwind side. Man, this is a tangle. Man, this buckthorn did a number on this woods, didn't it? If I got off of this deer trail, I'd really be in some thick crap. The one thing that's nice when you're walking through here is that these trails aren't busted open, telling me people have not been back here much. That knee-high, probably a 2-year-old. And there's a historical one right there that's knee-high. It's got scarring way up here when the main beam's here. But our 2-year-olds are pretty big around here. Hard to imagine something really big is getting through this crap. 20 inches wide would have a hard time, wouldn't you think? I'm not finding any sign of people in this dense stuff. Now when I turkey hunted and I hunted the outskirts for turkeys, where there was a human trail going around the outside of this, then there was some human sign, some setup sign, and shell casings and stuff like that. But I haven't seen a shell casing, I haven't seen a limb cut, I haven't seen where anybody would set up in this. You'd have to cut a swath through this. And what that tells me is those deer can just jump into here and live here when the hunting pressure's on. And that's not to say somebody doesn't walk through here and drive this, that's quite possible. But I would think deer could just run circles around you in here. Especially in this stuff here. It's getting low and wet again down here on this end of the property. And still just tons of doe tracks in here, right where we're at. They're living in here year round, but in this brush and dogwood and stuff down here, it would be pretty tough for somebody to shake the deer out of here. It's too vast of an area. And here's red rosere dogwood. They eat the hell out of this. Yeah, here, this is chewed off. Whew. Man, this is hard to navigate. Looks like I might have some higher ground over here, like I'm almost through it. Oh, here's a blockade. It looks like if I can get through this blockade, the other side I might be able to navigate. as soon as you get into more open woods where the buckthorn hasn't quite taken over yet, we're in the outskirts of it, once again, stinging nettles everywhere. Preferred deer food, you see where they're sitting here eating. And in with the nettles, I've been seeing a lot of jewelweed. Not exactly at this spot, but all over walking. Like you have a patch of nettles and you have a patch of jewelweed. I mean, there's got to be a ton of deer feeding in this crap in early season. This is just like a giant food plot back here. And man, there's trails going through here and tracks everywhere. It's trying to hard to decipher the size. I mean, like here's a good track there, but it rained pretty heavy last night, washing most of them out. The spot where we set up first, or the only spot we set up so far, that had a lot of fresh tracks coming in and out of that bedding since it rained yesterday. Now after that first spot, what we've been navigating here, where we're seeing all these historical rubs and stuff, has been not where I expect these deer to live, but where I expect them to travel. You know, so I'm not really in there looking for sign, and I normally wouldn't even look in an area like that, but it was the closest distance to get to the next spot I wanted to scout. Normally I'd look at the field edges and stuff for big buck sign. Like now we're getting into the areas where we are close to the crops, and look at this. Look at that rub. That is a rub that looks like it's been rubbed for years. I think it was even rubbed last year a little bit based on the bleeding. I mean, but it is only just above knee high, so it's probably a 2 or 3 year old. Like I said, we got pretty big rack 2-year-olds, and they rub pretty big diameter trees. But something like that would cause a lot of attention. When you start looking around for where they hunting. And I don't know, there could be somebody hunting right there. That's pretty cleared out. The deer trail's right here. I don't know, I don't see any fresh cuttings. Let's see if there's any marks on the tree. Yeah, I don't know, there's little twigs on here that aren't busted off. I don't think anybody hunted it. So we're probably in an area that doesn't get a lot of pressure. I mean, this, where we're at now, does have a little easier access for people to get to. So that's kind of surprising that there isn't a setup here. These people all just focus on rubs. I would imagine that this rub here is made in the middle of the night. And I would imagine that deer is not using this trail like most people would think. I would imagine he's coming from that thick, swampy area on the edge of it, come through here towards the crops, and he's marking this doe trail. Probably around rut, pre-rut. Now I've walked quite a ways back in here, and I'm back to the point where I'm getting close to what I wanted to look at. I'm getting near a land border where there's a thick, nasty swamp. I can see from the road onto the private, but it looks like a really good bedding area with the deer would probably get up on that property and come through here to the field. And we're only about 75 yards from the edge of that bedding, maybe 100 yards from the edge of that bedding on that private. And even though this all looks the same as what we've been walking through, based on my Spartan Forge, I can see that the bedding is right over there. And as I come into this, I'm looking for fresher sign, I'm looking for good setups, and I run into this. That's a fresh one. And that's higher up. That's close to waist high. That is most likely a 3 or a 4 year old deer. And I can see trails going in through this stuff. I mean, that's kind of a jungle, but it's only a jungle for a little ways, and then there's that bedding. So I'm kind of interested in that. And there's no human sign in this area at all. But you gotta go through some nasty stuff to get back this far. So, I mean, we're nowhere near the private property's houses, and we're nowhere near the access. This is a ways back. So that is really good sign. Now I'm getting pretty confident about the setups I'm doing in here because I'm starting to see fresh big buck sign too. I'm not seeing a ton of it, but there just needs to be one or two to kill them. Now it's just a matter of how I set this up. It'd be a lot easier looking at this in springtime when all these leaves were gone, you know, like in winter, post-season. And then I could just look through this woods and from right here be able to see exactly where I need to be able to see the rubs from a distance. Right now I'm looking through a wall of leaves. It's hard. Well, I ended up marking that location where that last rub was because there were some trails coming out there, and when I moved away from it a little bit, the trail started really picking up. And I felt that if looking a little closer, that private land border was right there, and it looked like the bedding was right up against the border. So I don't think I could go much further, and it does seem like the bedding was closer than I thought, and the trails all kind of come together out of that bedding right there and leading to this trail that has fresh markings on fresh tracks from today. And this track looks really big. Look at how big that toe is. That's an important factor when you're looking at big tracks, how big the toe is. That's a big track with big toes. Thin toes like that, little deer. That one's a big buck, in my opinion. So I'll look a little further, but I got two setups now. That one I didn't really have to do much with. It was just a couple good trees. It was a pretty open area, just where the thick kind of opened up. And it all kind of leads this way towards crops. So take a look towards the crops here and see what we see. But this is the kind of trail a big buck can walk on. There's another one of those real big tracks. You know, they're not getting through that crap. So if you got an area like this that has an open trail and it's in an area where people aren't getting back to, I mean, this is what the bucks are going to travel back here. Yeah, there's another big track right there. That tree's got some really, really old scarring. This is pretty mature back here though, there ain't much to rub. Oh, here's a rub tree up here, I can see the bleeding. Yeah, that tree was rubbed too to death. This one was hit, it's got scarring. Not this year though, probably last year. This one was hit this year. There's fresh marks. There's last year's marks too, and older marks. This has been hit for years. You see some pretty high up spots, and that again is pretty high on me. 3 to 4 year old bucks, and now I'm getting a little excited. And this is the same trail, and the crops are right up there, right where it starts to get light on the camera. So this is probably where I would expect somebody to set up. They'd see sign coming out into the field and set up in here. But even here, I don't see any place for anybody who's been setting up. This is looking pretty good. There's another trail going through here. There's some more tracks, fresh. Yeah, everything kind of comes together right here and forces the deer right here through a funnel. If somebody was going to hunt this is where they would hunt, right here. Right exactly here, most people. Look at this historical rub here. Maybe that tree right there. It's good to see there ain't no permanent stands chained to a tree here. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like at some point somebody might have broke this off, but it could have been this tree falling too. Yeah, if anybody hunted out of this, not anytime recently. You know, I get over here, and typical to most people, I see the cut shooting lane here from the field edge. So, like most people, I knew somebody had to set up here at some point. They're hunting right on the field edge. They even cut down one of the rub trees. I mean, come on. But they're sitting right there, silhouetted, right where a deer would expect them. You know, what I see is mature bucks, when they come into these areas like this, they really, really are leery about field edges. Sitting on a field edge isn't just, you know, like bad because deer don't get there in daylight, but it's bad because that's where deer expect you to be. It's the danger when they walk into the open. It's kind of like walking into a tunnel for us. You're expecting if there's a problem, that's where it's going to be. Or walking into an alley. You know, they're coming out of their natural area into human area. And then when they hit this stuff, then they're worried. That's about a year old, I would say. So, could be gun season, could be bow season, probably bow. Gun hunters usually don't clear lanes. Nothing's been freshly cut though. So, looks like 2 seasons ago, because like they're cutting, this new shoots are above it. It's not regrown. We'll see if there's a obvious stand here or something. Probably that tree right there, and I can see branches have grown up against it, but that's right down the shooting lane. And yeah, I don't think they hunted this last year. I think they hunted it the year before. Probably nothing came in after they cut all the branches and they gave up. See how you can just kind of read where people are going to be, where hunters are going to hunt. You know, it's like you can kind of see how they come in. They're going to come in from the crops, follow them back to the deer, and they're not going to know how far to go back. They don't look at the bedding and stuff. So they get in from the crops and they're like, well, that's thick. I think the deer are there. So they sit up right on the edge of the field. You know, or they glass from the road and they see the deer come out there during the summer. So they set up there. So you just know there's going to be a setup there. And that's kind of funny because the way I just know it is probably the same way a deer reads that. I mean, that's where they run into trouble. And you got to think like differently than the rest of the people, or you're going to have results like everybody else. I think that person's probably struggling to kill mature deer. Wouldn't doubt it if he gets deer there though. Not a bad setup for deer. So I went down a little further. I'm still along the crop edge, and I found this trail. And I followed the trail in and then back, but it just confirmed that this buck trail here goes right to the same tree I set up back in here. But up by the field edge here, looky, cut limbs from somewhere's up in there. I would have to think they're hunting off the ground. I don't see any tree could have been set up. Unless they're hunting back here. No, that's too thick too. Actually, they could have been, yeah, they're in that tree right there. That's true, but we're right alongside the field. And you know what puts them on a trail like this? A rub. That's a pretty good one too. So we got a pretty decent buck coming in and out of here, out of somebody's private, going into crops and somebody else's private, just a little corner of the public. Oh, there's a big rub there too. Can you see that bare spot on that tree? That's high up, and that's kind of probably fresh from last year. Yeah, right there. So that's pretty high too. So we got a good buck coming through here. I got a setup over here that'll cut him off. Coming from that private to this private, it's just a little corner. There's other people hunting it. But it looks to me like they're hunting too close to the crop edge and the deer's going to be onto them. It might be important for me to get in here before they get out here hunting, because they might make that deer fairly nocturnal, fairly edgy when they show up. It does look like the sign on these trails looks like these deer are still using it. Zooming in on the neighbors over here. It does look hunted. It does look like there's food plots out there. It looks like there's ATV trails to stands, to box blinds that you can zoom in on. Thanks for the clarity on the Spartan Forge. But that's good. Their pressure will probably push those deer in here even more. But it looks to me like they're coming through there this way to feed, at least some of the time. If not right off the bat during the early season, probably as soon as they start putting pressure on those food plots. You know, I would imagine they start getting active right around opening day, the week before, something like that, and they kind of tip all those deer off like most people do. And maybe they start coming through here, especially the mature ones. We know there's one good buck using this area. Unless he got killed, unless he's the one that we found the carcass of. But there's plenty of sign of 2-year-olds in here too. I mean, there's probably a shooter or two around. And it's worth keeping tabs on this area. Doesn't look like a bad spot. But we come out here, we set up, we find 2 spots. That's it, 2 spots. You hunt them more than once or twice a year, and it'll be like this guy in the corner here trying to kill one next to the field edge. You'll have the same results. So he could stumble into a big deer every now and then, once every, 5 or 10 years. But if you want to shoot him consistently, you don't want to make those spots known. You want to slide into those ambushes and kill them where they've never been hunted before, where they don't expect you. I'm trying to navigate back out of here, and I'm following the crop edge, and I got to get around that swampy, wet, low area that I had to navigate through before that was thick. And I thought maybe deer could bed along the edge of that, and I knew there was a lot of doe sign and what I thought was probably rut sign, but there's this heavy trail going into the crops over there and some smaller rubs on it. So I started following it back here just to see what was up, and I saw this smaller rub too, which is fresh, but probably 1.5 year old buck. And then when I got to here, I can see a really, really big rub, probably the biggest one yet, on this trail right here. And it drops down into that swamp. Yeah, that's a mature buck. The center is over my waist. That deer is probably 5+, at least 4 years old, I would say. At least 4. That's a good buck, did that, up this high on this trail. And this trail goes along the swamp edge. Now, I don't know for sure if that buck's bedding back here or not, but that's worth a sit, for sure. And look at how much, zooming in with Spartan Forge, it looks like this area is probably the most remote area right here, which would make sense for a mature buck. This might not be a bad area to set up in, honestly. I might be off, the bedding might be way back, but really you can't get too far back here. You'd have to within a couple 100 yards of it, I think. Get too far, you hit houses and open areas, and yeah, I think this is probably a good setup. So I always say don't set up over the sign, random sign in the woods. But if you can reason a reason for it, why is it here, why is it going this way? I mean, this is a pretty heavy trail. It's not marking a doe trail, a cross trail. It seems to be one rub on this trail going to the food, like he's staging here on his way to the food, and the food is 50, 75 yards up, and this is where he's getting stressed. I'd say we kick back on this trail to where it looks like it's starting to get towards bedding. I think there's a little open pine area up here, and when we get up there, find a good setup further back. This is too close to the field, I think, but God, this has to be coming from bedding. It kind of comes from the same area as those other bucks, so I might be off. It might be coming right through the funnel or where my stand is, or the setup is. But I doubt it. I think it's coming from further back. So we're just gonna go up a little bit and try to make a setup out of this, because this trail's real heavy and there's buck sign on it, and it seems like competitive sign, like bucks competing for this area. So that trail with the big buck rub is right over there. I get into here and there's a few more big buck rubs like right here, and here's a trail here. There's a main trail, the heavy trail is right there, and then over where those fallen trees are, there's another real heavy trail, and there's scattered big rubs in here around. So this swamp kind of goes like this, and it's got some little points and stuff in here, and I'm thinking he's coming out of there and on the edge of it, so I don't want to get too much further. But if it's wind blowing that way, that pine tree right there, shoot right through here, and I can even shoot up into here where it seems like he's staging, like the little open area before the swamp. See how dense it is over there? I think he's not far into there. And then if I'm gonna sit here for the wind going that way, and same thing, I can hit this whole open area and I can hit all these trails. This looks like the ticket to me for this spot, and it's worth a try. Don't know. But there's fresh sign here, there's a buck living here. He's marking this, he's not marking everything else, but this area here is pretty marked up by a lot of bucks. So it's worth a shot. Probably wouldn't even be a bad idea to use this as a camera location to just get a timing on what time he's going through, if it's middle of the night or if it's daylight or whatever. Get a little ahead on it instead of hunting it once or twice a year and taking 5 years to figure out. Because if he's coming through later, I'll kick back further. But I think he's right here. It's worth a shot. So now, in this entire woods, we got 3 spots. That's actually pretty good. 3 spots in here. We could hunt this thing down in three hunts. And I bet you we're covering most of the spots where big bucks bet on this property. And in 3 hunts, if there's one here and he's living on this property, we should have an interaction. If he's not here at the time frame we hunt, then we don't. What is nice about that last spot is after a thorough walk around where it enters the field, doesn't look like anybody has got a setup at that spot, so he pretty much has not been hunted where he's busting out. It's a good thing he ain't rubbing right next to the field, and he's not. So there's some little rubs there, but nothing that caught anybody's attention. Those little rubs are everywhere. So, cool beans. We got 3 good setups here. Ooh, look at this. Another fresh one really high. Yeah. It all seems to be down in this little area down here. So, I think we can do something here. It's gonna be heck to navigate through this stuff though, carrying a bow and a tree stand. That's for sure. Kinda as expected, this whole area here along the edge of the crops is marked up heavy. See that? Ooh. So these deer are, you know, they're here. They're just not marking back in that buckthorn and stuff where they live, which is good because hunters basically go on sign. So they'd all be hunting up here where the deer basically move at night. So I'm good with that.